Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you're connecting from. I'm Ira Feldman. I'm the Managing Director of the tinyML Foundation. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on the tinyML Vision Challenge. We'll provide a little background on the challenge, but more importantly, this session is designed to be an interactive question and answer session. So, in order to ask your questions, please use the Q&A tool as we talk, and we will pick the questions and answer as many as we can here, and we'll answer the balance online. This recording will be made available via our YouTube channel early next week. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I'd like to turn it over to Evgeny Gusev, who will start the program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Global tinyML community. My name is Evgeny Gusev. I'm from Qualcomm, and I'm also on the board of directors of the tinyML Foundation. We are very excited today to have this seminar today, our webinar today, because this is a very special event. We are kicking off our first interactive collaborative project together. And this webinar is basically an opportunity for you to learn more and also an opportunity to ask questions live about this interesting project. We have a distinguished group of people today who is going to participate at this event. So let me introduce them one by one. So first, it's some of our judges. So it's experts who are going to be actively involved in reviewing submissions and making final recommendations there. So it's Zach Shelby from HMPulse, Kwabena Ageman from Openmv. Then we have representatives from some of our sponsors. It's Mark Chen joining us from Taiwan, Hymix Technology, Charles Chon, Pixar Imaging, and Sadiq Sheikh from joining us actually from Europe, from Switzerland, Synsense. So these companies and more are very interested in this challenge, and they're supporting it both as sponsors, but also in terms of providing their tools, providing their hardware kits, providing their experience. I think they are just like us, are passionate about making tinyML vision a big opportunity and develop new use cases. Yeah. So we also have Ira Feldman and Kevin Bates online as well. Ira is the Managing Director of tinyML Foundations, and Kevin represents Hacksters.io. Specifically, he's in charge of contests there. So they will be answering questions related to processes and other type of things. So you see, we have a very powerful and experienced group of people here. So again, please submit your questions if you have any questions about this challenge, and we'll be happy to entertain them live. And as Ira said, please use Q&A button on Zoom. It's easier to manage this way. So this challenge is, as I mentioned, a collaboration with Hacksters, and the focus of this challenge comparing to other challenges, we are not doing benchmarking here. We are not comparing performance of one hardware engine with respect to the other hardware engine. We are not comparing like what software tool or framework is better. So the focus of this challenge is really on developing new use cases, because we really believe in tinyML and in tinyML vision big time, and I think use cases is one of the things we focus here. And as we do this, I think the second objective is to promote all this tinyML technologies and company in the developer world, basically to connect the technology part and the developer world. And the content is open now. Sponsors, I think we are very fortunate to have a very strong support for this challenge. It comes from several companies, and more sponsorship slots are available. You can go to sponsorship, send email to sponsorship@tinyml.org, and then you'll get all the information there. There are multiple benefits. But again, we are very happy to see this very strong support that came in very short time. First of all, it's the executive sponsors, ARM, Impulse, Hymix Technologies, and Qualcomm, and the platinum sponsors, Lattice Semiconductors, Pixar Imaging, and Synsense. And again, these companies are not only providing support to this competition, like sponsorship support, they're here with us today really to provide the experience and, as I said, hardware tools, software tools, whatever is needed to make this challenge successful for you. And also, you see some of the sponsors are strategic partners. So if you have questions about strategic partnership program, you can also send email, contact us. This program has even more benefits for people who join it. ARM, let me acknowledge just the executive sponsors one by one. So ARM is the company, global company that offers software and hardware foundation for tinyML. Impulse has been our loyal sponsor since day one. It's a platform for all developers, tinyML platform for all developers. And again, Zach is online today as a judge and as a participant for this webinar. Hymix Technology is known for always-on, ultra-low power edge AI. And again, Mark Chen is with us today to participate and explain what they do and what they can offer for this particular challenge. Qualcomm is a global company with a lot of activities in the AI space, and that's I represent Qualcomm today. And next, you may ask why we do this challenge with Hacksters. And if you look at the numbers there, they speak for themselves. Just from my perspective, I think we look at a couple of different options, and several tinyML partner companies, they've been using this platform in the past, and they've been quite happy with this. So it's easy to use. There is a process, but more importantly, there is a huge community behind, specifically the developer community, because we want to connect tinyML community, which is mostly technology driven, to the developer world. So this collaboration is a perfect partnership for us, really, to bring these two communities together. And we have representatives from Hacksters online. So we have Jessica and Kevin. So Kevin, or Jessica, you want to speak to this slide and the next one, please?
Yeah, sure. Welcome to everybody who joined the webinar. The Hackster community is, as it mentions here, the world's largest collection of hardware developers that are participating in this contest and other contests. It's a collection of developers who like to share and publish their content. So it's an open platform for anybody to use. It involves being able to post your project, and on the next slide we show a little bit what that looks like. The projects are all built with a tool that allows you to add your tools that you use, so different components like bill of materials. It allows you to add images, document the entire process, so that it's a really beautiful way to present your hard work. Other platforms sometimes will allow you to have a white page, but we go above and beyond and really try to celebrate everybody's submissions. So in addition to being a very vibrant place to share your documentation, we also like to celebrate and promote when you post those projects. So we will do things like sponsor projects on our main page. And of course, we have a huge social following that we promote as well. And that's what we're going to be doing throughout this contest. And as it ends is to promote some of the excellent things that you guys come up with. And really excited to see what some of the vision applications that we see in the low power space.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that's really beautiful to have this type of platform and for people to be able to see and discuss things there. Next is, you may ask why tinyML Foundation is interested in doing this challenge and drive this challenge, because so far the foundation has been known for delivering this excellent events like the summit, and now we're doing the Asian event, and every week we have webinars, tinyML talks, and so on. So I think the reason is here. So when we started the foundation in about 2 years ago with the summit in the 19, our first step was really to build the awareness what tinyML is, build a community, build a brand. And I think we've been really working hard on this in the past year or two. And I think this mission has been accomplished. So I think as a community, we got to the point now where we have tinyML groups all over the world, a lot of experts, a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of newcomers there, a lot of energy in this community. And you see there on this map, it's we have 33 groups now in 26 countries, and it just keeps growing. And I'm sure there are more and more people in the parts of the world where we don't have dots yet. I think these dots will be coming up in the future too. So the next step for us is really to connect this community, to partner, to engage, and do real things together. So that's why we are very excited and very bullish about this Vision Challenge, because this is the first project we do together globally. We have more projects under planning in the tinyML for Good space and other areas. But again, we are sort of like diversifying in a way from being an event type of community to more kind of a global connected community where people work together, where people develop value together, where people partner together, where people learn from each other. And I think that's going to be our focus this year. So that's why, again, we are super excited about this first step. And I think we are very confident that this is going to be very successful to bring this community together, because we do feel tons of energy in this community, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of expertise. We know that the technologies are there. We see a lot of companies working on this. Just like this week, we saw an acquisition in the tinyML space. We saw a lot of money coming from VC world. I think you saw some announcement there too. A lot of activities in academic world. So it's really the right time for us to start doing real and practical things and take this to the next level. So that's basically the message here. And obviously, no doubt, this is going to result in significant value, in impact in the coming months and years. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Zach. Zach, why don't you explain like why we're doing the vision and what is special about vision?
Thank you, Evgeny. Hi, everyone. I'm Zach Shelby. Vision is really, us as humans, right, is the primary sense that we depend on. And so, vision for us is really very natural. It's how we understand and interpret much of the world. And really interestingly, right, we're seeing the same thing happen in the computer sensing space, right, and with tinyML, where absolutely sensors are everywhere, audio is everywhere, but computer vision has huge applications and a lot of potential for us in applying this to low power systems and low power algorithms. And so oftentimes we talk about, wake up applications, we talk about always on sensing. These are some of the ways that we can use computer vision, but the sky's the limit. And we do see massive opportunities for this in almost every industry and almost every application. So this is something that covers all verticals. It doesn't matter whether they are in, for example, industrial predictive maintenance. We see computer vision starting to be used. Monitoring infrastructure, monitoring manufacturing processes. We're seeing this become more common in healthcare. In white goods, right, is being integrated. And of course, things where you see cameras anywhere that if there's a camera involved, people are starting to add machine learning capabilities. What happens when we go low power and we start using tinyML techniques is that the bar for applying computer vision just goes down, right? We can put this in lower power products. We can do this with less battery, with less bandwidth. And that's going to increase the applications even further. Our goal is to help you innovate in machine learning using tinyML techniques and computer vision. And the sky's really the limit. The way that I would think about this is, put the hat of a startup entrepreneur on, right? I would encourage all of you that are entering the contest, think of yourself as a small startup working on an interesting application to apply the technology, but think of it from what problem can we solve, right? How can we add value, right? What is even the value proposition for solving this problem in this way? And that's something that then you get the input from the judges, you get the input from the whole industry, and you might get then a lot of help from that process to move your idea forward. And so from a technology point of view, we're pretty flexible, right? We are looking for low power, battery constrained applications. You don't necessarily have to go with the lowest power hardware available on the market, but please show us that it can be done, right? So if all you have is a Raspberry Pi with a camera, use it. But there are tooling available that can show you what the performance would be on a Cortex-M4, for example, or a low power device. So show us that this could work on a low power device. That would be great for the judges. Applications can be in any vertical. We don't have a preference on the vertical. You can use any processor that you want, any architecture that you want, any tools and software frameworks. So, if you want to implement machine learning algorithms from scratch, that's completely okay. If you want to use a TensorFlow cafe type framework, if you want to use a graphical tool, anything is okay for the contest. And we encourage you to get creative with vision sensors too, right? This doesn't have to be just RGB CMOS sensors. You could apply thermal sensors. You could use event-driven cameras. There's other types of spectral cameras. There's even things like 3-dimensional radar with high resolution that you could use for computer vision. And, think out of the box. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Do something that's innovative, and focus on the problem that you're solving.
Well,
next, Jenny.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and we think about this, from the tinyML community's point of view. What are we trying to achieve, and what are we trying to help you achieve in the competition? And for us, we see tinyML applying very naturally to sensor applications and audio applications. But we know that there's so much more possible with computer vision. But we really need to get interesting new use cases developed, proof of concepts developed, and that will inspire many more people in academia and in industry to go work on these things. So developing new use cases is a big objective for this. We also want to connect the tinyML tech community together, right? There's a lot of people in academia who work on applications. There are developers who are hungry to work on things, and then there's the whole industry that can help out. So connect everyone together working on real applications, and promote some of these new techniques. How can new technologies, how can new processors and cameras be used? And then, of course, this helps us build, a stronger ecosystem. And finally, we'd like to see new products out of this, right? If you end up entering the challenge, you work on something interesting, you win a prize, we'd hope that you go on and continue to productize that, right? Create a startup if you need to go bring it to market. You get a lot of support from the community around tinyML to do that. And that, of course, helps us create, develop our workforce. And for many of you, this might be a great way to showcase your work and get employed by a cool company in the space.
Yeah, and I think related to this, Zach, thank you for doing this introduction. What we're doing in the tinyML Foundation as we speak, we are developing a process and evaluating options for scale up. How do we scale up these ideas from the challenge, from the vision challenge to the next step? How do we help you to start these companies, basically, whatever help you may need? So I think we believe that this is very important, and I think you're going to hear from us in a few months about this process. How do we scale up these technologies from ideation all the way to business? So I think that's quite important, because we do believe some good ideas are going to come out of this challenge. That's why we're doing this. So let's move on to the requirements. So Webena, you want to take from here?
Yeah, howdy y'all. So we're wanting individual developers and teams to participate. And the big thing, as we mentioned before, is we're trying to solve unique problems with this competition. The future is bright for tinyML. You're going to start to see with products like the the M55 coming out later in silicon, that we're going to have 1 teraflop of performance really at your fingertips with tinyML. We're running on a microcontroller. And so we want to get people thinking about unique ideas where you could really deploy a neural network to do something useful in resource-constrained environments, or just environments where you have to worry about battery power. So pretty much what we're going to want from you is a solution and a presentation about what you're doing. We want to see the design process, the hardware, the software that's used behind it. We want it to be transparent, and you want it to be clear. And we're really enabling anyone to use any embedded platform they want to use. The big thing, though, that we're looking for in this competition is we want to see that you're trying to make this some kind of solution that's novelly used in some kind of embedded system standpoint. An example, big points for things that are battery powered, where you need it to run for a year or multiple years outside without being recharged. This means you got to be a little bit creative then about what kind of platform you use. It's not something where we want to see you plug it into a wall and it's sipping power from an AC outlet. We're looking for projects and examples where you're deploying ML in a situation where you actually have to worry about power and resource constraints.
Yeah.
All right. And so for the judging criteria, we're really going to want to see, as we said before, a good amount of documentation. So how well can you tell the story? That's going to be awesome. We also want to see screenshots, video, pretty much anything you can put together that shows that you built the product, that it's working, and that other people can recreate it. Awesome. And then it'd be awesome otherwise if you could also demonstrate this in a real scale industrial problem to actually get developers and commercial users excited about what this could be used to solve in real life. How can we deploy this tinyML functionality, these neural networks on real critical problems that are not solved today? We're looking for a BOM. So if you can put together some kind of list behind what kind of hardware and software tools you used, so to give people a good idea of the costs. Additionally, a schematic would be great. However you want to put that together, you can use Draw.io, Fritzing, put that through Altium or Eagle, but something to help explain to people how this is put together. And then working code that shows off the idea. Now, we're not looking for this to be like, production ready code or anything, but something that shows off how this actually works and how is it doable and how is it made. Finally, we want to see how you can use this idea and how it can be scaled and how creative it is. It's awesome if you could present something that hasn't been done already, something that isn't on the internet that you can already search for. So we're looking for novel ideas about how to go about using machine learning in crazy use cases. And so that's why we're coming to the community here to run this project, is we really want to get people thinking about different problems that they have and how they can actually use tinyML to solve that. And finally, we actually do want to see low power battery consumption. So if you can't think of any idea that that can run on a battery, it's okay to present a project that does have to plug into a wall. But we're still looking for, if it's going to plug into a wall, is it something that's small that can be embedded, or is it battery powered? We want to really see an application where you're using tinyML in a novel way that's different from what desktop ML looks like today.
Okay, well, thank you, Corbana, and maybe we can move on to the formal part real quick. I mean, all this information is on the website. You can go there and kind of explore it yourself. But again, we are fortunate to have Kevin and Jessica from Hacksters today. They could quickly walk us through the process, and that may help you to understand how it works. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. So I'll speak in general about this. Of course, these notes, these rules are on the contest page itself, and this video will be cataloged. So feel free to come back to it as you need to. But Major things is we're looking for, honest work. So, we're looking out for unique work, that's something that you've created. You are, of course, able to use examples and things like that within your code work, but please make sure you're not just taking an example from a component's application note and just presenting that as your own. Do try to create something unique. You're able to submit as a team. So if you want to join up with as many as 5 people, you can go ahead and work together. And as I mentioned before, that's a great example of something that might fit for a startup type environment. So if you've got a few of your friends, you've got an idea for something that could turn into a business, this might work as something like a portfolio example for some of that work. Of course, we're looking for computer vision and tinyML, so that is a requirement. If you submit something that's running on the GeForce 3090, it's probably not going to qualify for this contest. The documentation just requires that you to fill out the full project. There's a number of sections that are within each of the project pages. We've got some tutorials and examples on our website on how to do that. And of course, if you have any questions throughout the contest, you're able to message me or others on the Hackster platform to try to get some more sort there. And we do require it to be in English just so that we have a standard. In order to register for the contest, you can just go to hackster.io. The process for registering is pretty straightforward. There's a pop-up on the main page. You'll create a project. I won't go through the full process here, but basically you create a project and that is tied to your account. You'll populate the project with all of the contents, and then once you're ready to submit it, you'll use the platform's tool to make that submission. If you have any questions on how to do that, we have some tutorials and some FAQ on our website that I would encourage you to try. It's pretty straightforward, but if you do have any issues, you can of course we have on the Hackster website in the bottom right-hand corner, there's one of those live chat options. And so if you get any questions when you're using the website, feel free to use that. And we have people available to answer your questions most of the time, full-time during Pacific working hours. But if you come in if you're overseas, we also have a team that can help with some basic website navigation there as well. And then last but not least, the contest closes on August 20th. So make sure that you've got all your submissions done and ready by then. And yeah, we're excited to see what's coming in. Oh yeah, so we've got the dates here. Contest is running right now. And then we'll finish on the 20th. Then we'll take a week to submit or to provide the results to all the judges. Judges will use that rubric to determine who has made a best fit and made the best project. And then on September 1st, the winner's announced. We can see that the prizes here range from $3,000 for the first prize, $2,000 for the second prize, and $1,000. So great opportunities. And of course, when we finish this, there'll be a presentation that we make from Hackster that kind of celebrates the best projects, and we'll be sharing them on our social media as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kevin. And again, it's been open for about a month, and we already have over 200 people registered, and several already submitted their projects. That's actually pretty cool to get this start from the very beginning. And let's move on to the Q&A session now. I think there are two channels. We created also 2 channels for you to communicate to us after this presentation. If you have any general questions and questions you would like to discuss, you can go to the Hacksters. There is a discussion section there, and the link is there, but you can also get there from the contest page, and you can post your question there or your idea or whatever, and this will be available to the whole community, and people will kind of jump and ask and will comment. But if you have a very specific question to the tinyML organization and sponsors and people who can provide boards and other type of things, or if you have any challenges, any questions, any bottlenecks, any hurdles, just shoot us email, visionchallenge@tinyml.org, and they will be answered more like in a one-by-one type of fashion. So you have basically 2 forums, the discussion forum and the email communication channel for you.
Right, and Evgeny, one other thing I'd like to add, it was asked in the questions, We also do have the tinyML forums, forums.tinyml.org for general discussions. There was a question about mentoring and things like that. So if it's bigger than the discussion about the specific contest, feel free to open some threads on forums.tinyml.org.
Yeah. No, I think mentoring, kind of to follow on this, mentoring is a great part of this too, because the tinyML community is very diverse. We have people, beginners, people like students and so on, but we have a big community of experts. So, and I'm sure people will be happy to kind of to connect and provide some mentoring support as well. So that's kind of part of our charter as well. So before we open the floor, maybe I can start with a question because I'm sure some people are going to ask about the hardware, like how do I get hardware for this content? So that's why we have these global companies listed below: Hymix, PixArt, and Synsense. Maybe Mark, Charles, and Sadiq, maybe you can spend like 1 minute each and explain what your companies can provide and how, if people want to use your tools, your kits, your hardware, what is the way, what kind of capabilities, and how they can reach out to do this. So maybe we'll start with Mark, kind of alphabetically here. Yeah.
Okay, this is Mark from Hymix. And Hymix provide both the ultra low power AI processor and also the low power image sensors. And not only from day one, we know that for the AI community, the hardware is just the foundation. The most important for the developer is the tool chain. So we work closely with the Google TensorFlow team and to make our platform to use the TensorFlow Lite for microcontroller tool chain, the open source tool chain to connect deploy your NN model to our hardware platform. And we also work very closely with AgentPlus, and they have a fantastic platform to you even not just almost no need any software coding. You can do the AI inference with our hardware platform, sensor, and AI processor. So we are very happy to join this contest. And you can find our platform on the SparkFun or DigiKit online store, and you can get all our tool chain and SDK for free, and all they are open source. You can get from Google GitHub and also Hymix GitHub.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. This is fantastic, and thank you also for joining at this late hour in your part of the world. I think it's almost like midnight in Taiwan. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
No problem.
And also, Hymix as an executive sponsor is going to have a judge on this contest. I think you're going to see more information coming too. So, Charles, you want to describe what PixArt technology, PixArt Imaging does, and
sure.
your involvement in the Vision Challenge?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Evgeny. So yeah, I'm Charles. We're actually very happy and glad to be sponsoring the tinyML, especially the Vision Challenge, which directly relates to the product that we actually produce. So PixArt Imaging is a low power sensor. So you know a lot of our sensors probably through some of the daily things that you use, like probably optical mouse, gaming consoles. So we have been in the computer vision for low power for a long time, but actually we are really happy to see tinyML taking this to the next level, which is also in a sense also helping us a lot. So from a hardware perspective, so we have an ultra low power global shutter camera that you could actually, we are actually in the process of updating our website right now. But if you go to our website next week, it should actually give you instruction on how to actually retrieve a complimentary Openmv shield that has our camera on it. And you could actually go to our website next week, and it should give you instructions on how to actually retrieve one of those. It's totally free. You can just, it will give you instructions, just follow the instructions, and I will make sure that you actually get a pair of hardware for your development.
And just in general, we'll be updating the contest page on Hackster with the links to the PixArt website and also other hardware available from the other sponsors too. So just pay attention to the website and you'll see a few links in the next week.
Yes.
Thanks.
And you will also see more information on the tinyml.org website as well, related to all these options in terms of hardware and software, what may be available.
I wanted to give a note. So Edge Impulse, they just rolled out a really nice, awesome new product that allows you to do bounding box detection on objects. So now you can actually deploy a tinyML algorithm that, well, a CNN that's actually able to give you bounding box tracking. And this runs on the Raspberry Pi currently, but we're going to be adding this same kind of support to the Openmv Cam H7 Plus. So you're going to be able to do the same kind of thing where you are able to actually track bounding boxes. We're backed up though right now, just getting out a new update for Openmv IDE and other things, because I'm mainly the one worker doing all this stuff. So it takes a while, but that'll be coming out shortly, probably in July.
Oh, yeah, thank you. This is pretty cool. I mean, to have this offer to the community. So HiMax and PixArt Images, they offer standard CMOS type of cameras, but as Zach said earlier, we don't want to think about CMOS as cameras as the only way to do vision. There are other ways, and one of them is event-driven cameras. And there are some companies, actually several tinyML companies, developing these solutions. And we have SynSense online. Sadiq, you want to describe like what SynSense does in this space and how, specifically to the vision, how people can benefit from the technology your company develops?
Yeah, thanks, Eugene. So hi, this is Sadiq Sheikh from SynSense. So just a brief introduction of SynSense. SynSense is an event-driven computation company. We build chips that are for event-driven processing. It's all based on the notions of event-driven vision, clubbed with event-driven processing, primarily CNN-based vision processing. The novelty here is everything is done in an event-driven fashion, taking advantage of the sparsity in the data that is prevalent in event-based cameras and event-based sensors. So we have a couple of dev kits, a couple of different types of dev kits. On our website, you should be able to go and request for a dev kit. So we have a limited number of them available to give away. So what we request is that you give us a brief summary of what you want to do with it, and we'll try and provide it to you on a priority basis. The vision is simple. The devices that we design, the chips that we design, are low power, exactly as described, by our colleagues here, and we're just trying to do it slightly differently. And the vision here is that that difference is going to give us an edge. So there is software that comes along with the processor that we have. This is because the algorithms that can be deployed on the devices we have are going to be inherently different, which take advantage of the novelty in the hardware, the sparsity, the event-driven nature of it. All of the software is also open source. We'll provide links to all the software and the tutorials, a few of the algorithms that you can deploy on our devices. I'll be in touch with Evgeny and Ira, and we'll make sure we have the tutorials up and available for you. So there is a catch. Like I said, the algorithms are novel, but at the same time, we know that is a stepping stone. So we also have some pipelines to bring your pre-built CNNs into this novel framework. So that gives you, the entry barrier is not really that high, therefore, and you should be able to deploy your models there, provided they're tiny. That's the key.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sadiq. I think I myself played with event-driven cameras a few years back, and it's really a unique capability, especially if your application requires some crazy requirements like 1,000 frames per second, for example, or if you have very dynamic lighting conditions, like from complete darkness going to direct bright light and other type of applications. That's especially if you have very sparse type of event, if there is not much happening in the scene, just like once in a while you have a change. I think those devices are pretty good. And back then, when we did a little bit of research on this work, I think that the bottleneck was the tools. So I'm really happy to see that the tools and the software, everything is coming, because the event-driven community is not as big as the traditional CMOS community with Sony and OmniVision and other companies, but it's actually growing fast. There are several companies that are getting well. So I think I would encourage you from the contest perspective to look at this, because this may give you some interesting solution kind of on the event-driven side. And also, as Zach mentioned earlier, think about this also holistically, like maybe you need to use a LiDAR type of sensor, or maybe you need to think about like a multispectral or hyperspectral sensor, or maybe for your vision challenge, maybe you can use two different ones. Maybe you want to use RGB and event driven and do some kind of interesting things there. Just think out of the box. But we are really happy to have these leading companies, Hymix, PixArt, Synsense, offering their technologies to people. But not only the technologies, but also providing their expertise, providing these development kits, documentation. I think that really helps to connect the hardware world to the developer world. So shall we entertain questions from the audience at this point?
Yeah. Yes, and Evgeny, we also don't want to forget Lattice Semiconductor, who couldn't join us today.
Right, exactly. So Lattice, maybe I can kind of briefly speak to them. So Lattice, as you know, it's a company that offer FPGA tools for this. So they also partner with some sensor companies, and they offer boards. They've been doing this for a couple of years now. They offer tools, boards with the FPGA chips and image sensors. And if you're interested in using an FPGA solution for your contest, this is a great way to use FPGA. And they have very good documentation. They have very good support, and they have Hassan and the team there who will be joining this, as I said, as a sponsor, but also as a company who is providing this support to the community. So again, we have a variety of tools, different hardware companies, different software tools. I think two of them were mentioned, the HMPulse, the TensorFlow, the Openmv, but there are other ones. So basically the tools are there, the hardware is there, so it's all imagination is yours, and the sky is the limit.
Okay. So yes, let's hop into some of the questions. Want to point out to people that we've answered a number of the questions already. So in the Q&A tool, you can go to the Answered tab and see the ones that we have already answered. We have two open questions at the moment, so people feel free to add additional questions. Maybe Zach or Corbina, do you want to tackle the first one about tinyML architectures as in regards to UNet or ResNet?
Yeah, so tinyML absolutely includes deep neural networks of all types. A lot of the research has focused on bringing more advanced neural networks, so CNNs as well as RNNs, into use. We are seeing, for example, quite a bit of MobileNet V1 and V2 already in production use, and there are transfer learning solutions available. So at least Corbina and I are both big fans of transfer learning, because we can turn the amount of data needed radically down and the amount of training time radically down. So, but you're free to use whatever neural network architecture you want. You can also use classical ML techniques. There's nothing against using classical ML approach for some specific types of vision applications. So for example, in Openmv IDE, you can do a lot already with OpenCV style computer vision processing. You could apply some very simple, decision tree or SVMs on that. So the sky's really the limit on what you want to apply. I would say though, if you're a beginner, stick with what TensorFlow Lite Micro and what the tooling supports, right? If you start trying to apply some of the latest research with very custom things, it's going to be a lot of very custom work for you.
Great. Thank you,
and
Zach.
just to follow on real quick here, I think Zach already mentioned this. So we're not really looking like what network is better. Is it like mobile net versus ResNet or whatever? It's all about solving problems and the use cases, and pick whatever works best for you. It can be classical CV, can be neural net based, can be more advanced ones. Yeah.
Great. And then there's a question about the challenge, whether the challenge is focused on any specific group of applications. No, the challenge is to use vision to solve an application. So it could be medical, it could be intrusion detection, it could be anything as long as it's a vision-based solution. So, okay, let's see, do we have any more? We just want to point out there are a lot of questions about some specific hardwares and platforms in the answered questions, and I think we'll also take this list of questions and we will sanitize them and post them so that people get the feedback from it too. Are there questions on, there's a question on low power is low power. I think we've talked about that. We want to make sure that you can demonstrate that the solution could run off battery. Obviously varying degrees of how long, but it should be battery operable.
Right.
Okay.
It has to be low enough power to run on a battery, and by battery we don't mean a Tesla car battery. It has to be like
or a power wall.
Yeah. It has to be a coil type of
I think the big thing is just to get across the idea that ML for desktop applications is already here, and there's not really a lot to explore there. And so we're really trying to get people to be creative about new applications that haven't been explored, where power consumption that desktop machines currently draw would be a problem. So like
and think about the battery in the context of your application too. So for example, if you want to create a small wearable device with a camera that can give you context about your user, you're going to have to run on the battery that fits in a small wearable device, right? We work with electric grid applications where, for example, a recent application, they have a little bit more space for a battery because it's fixed onto a power line, but it still needs to run on power for 10 to 20 years, right? So think about it in case of your applications. What is the kind of realistic battery that could be deployed in that application? You can go with that.
Okay. Have we answered all the questions? We'll give people. Oh, there we go. So once again, there's a question about the free hardware. So we will be posting links in the next week as to what hardware is available at no charge from some of the sponsors, what hardware is available at a discount, and then obviously software links to software that's available free or no charge. So please watch the contest website, and we will be updating that as we go with information on the free and sponsored hardware.
Ben, I saw you answered many questions online just by typing them, which is great. Maybe could you briefly summarize kind of the most significant ones for the audience, for people who are going to watch recording after they will not have access to this Q&A?
Oh yeah, let me just go down and answer
the most interesting one.
Let me just talk about that. So Darko asked if he's working at a startup and he wants to know if how to protect his IP when he's having to release information about the product. And the thing that we want to get across is that we're not looking for you to give out all the details of how to build the system and everything. It's just we want to have some kind of documentation available that gives people a reasonable idea of what the system is. So you could think of an example being like if you have some idea to do a system, some kind of block diagram showing off key components of that, and some amount of information that gives us judges and contest participants an idea of what you've actually done. so that we can see that there was some technical depth behind this versus if we see just like, here's the raw output and there's no information on how the magic happened, then it's hard to judge what kind of work was done in comparison to someone else's product. But you can, only present information you're comfortable sharing if you are working at a startup and you want to kind of enter the competition anyway.
As a general recommendation, also, if you believe that your idea is going to change the world, I think it's always a good idea to file your IP first, your patent application, and just to protect your idea, and then before you go public. But that's sort of like your decision, your call.
Well, and actually, I commented on this. You can always file a provisional patent, which gives you a year. So even if you don't know whether you're going to file a patent, you could just easily do a provisional.
Yeah. I think there were several questions. I think what qualifies as a tinyML, I think they were partially answered. So it's really based on the power and distinguish it from the cloud ML and the big server type of ML. Whatever is a low power and can run on the battery for a long time. That's kind of very broad. I think in general, at the tinyML Foundation, we define tinyML very broadly as technology that can run at 1 milliwatt or milliwatt type of range power. But that depends on your application. It's really very application specific.
So Ed asked, does the camera sensor have to be part of the device? Can we post-process images and video from an SD card using tinyML? And yeah, I mean, I guess that is a viable thing you can do. It kind of implies, though, I mean, why would you? So probably want to think about that application perspective, because that's totally a viable strategy. It's just I'm not sure what's the point. So probably need to explain that a little bit more. But yes, technically you could process data that's been previously recorded with a system. So maybe that's an interesting idea that I haven't thought of, and there's something really cool there. And then Dari mentions that vision is important. However, we've also got 5 human senses, and we've got a lot of other interesting sensors and phenomena we could collect. And so just want to get across that this is the tinyML vision competition. And so we're explicitly looking for vision-based products here. You could say, though, vision is a 1D sensor. That could be a vision-based product. But the goal here is to really kind of get people to think about how to use low-power cameras in interesting ways.
But I would say that sensor fusion could be pretty interesting. I mean, that's getting very advanced from just a managing the data point of view. But if you want to combine another sensor with the computer vision, that could be a very interesting approach. But it's a really advanced thing to integrate in your model.
Hey, also note that the Openmv cam supports the FLIR Lepton, any version. We also support the MLX 90640, 90641, 90620, and 90621, and the AMG 8833. These are all thermal cameras with varying amounts of resolution. So if you want to do some really cool ML applications with vision, I recommend trying out thermal cameras because they can see in the dark and they can see temperature and actually give you an exact temperature number for a pixel. And so these are also vision sensors in a way, in that they provide a 2D array of pixels, and you can then run a CNN algorithm on that and get interesting results. And then because the pixels actually have temperature information, you can then infer something else based on what you detect in that image.
Question for Kevin to answer, but I don't think from our side there's any reason a team could not put in more than one entry. Is there anything from a platform side, Kevin?
No, that's something by default in our contest rules we allow if people want to submit more than one entry. As long as you guys, tinyML, are okay with that, then yep, we can support that. The one thing to mention is you only have one chance to win. So you can't like win first and second place. The highest scoring submission that your team makes will be the one that counts.
Great, thank you.
And then there's some questions about, we actually just answered the low-res thermal camera one. And so there's questions about the Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi Pico. So Openmv will actually be supporting the Raspberry Pi Pico at some point in time. We've been working on a port for that. And so we're actually going to have our software running on board, thanks to the programmable PIO hardware and DMA logic that they put on that board. You can actually capture frames with a camera decently well. It doesn't really have the processing performance, though, to do anything real-time-ish, so you're not going to get spectacular results with it, but you'll be able to use it. And then for the Raspberry Pi W, 0W, that is also a fine applicable system. That's going to be something that Edge Impulse can also target, and you can run their CNN detection algorithms directly on board that platform. Yeah. And the Raspberry Pi W0 is kind of, a low power solution. One problem though is that, as far as I understand, Raspberry Pi still doesn't have a way to turn off the power on that. So you will run into issues where it continues to consume current regardless of what you are up to. So that'll make it challenging to use because it will drain any battery pretty quickly. But maybe there's a way you can get that working in a way that's more low power.
And I think to add to this, I think that's a great comment. Some of you may not know that Raspberry Pi Pico is a super inexpensive solution. I think you can buy this board for $4 in the US if you can get hold of it. But it's really the kind of the way for us to do low-cost CV. And I think Adrena platform is kind of somewhat similar. And if you're interested in learning more details, you can go to the tinyML YouTube channel. It's YouTube/tinyML, and you can subscribe there too. And there are video presentations from Raspberry Pi and also from Adrena, from Massimo. There you can learn more in detail there. There was one question I think before we conclude I want to answer from Jessica. I think Jessica asked a very good question. Are there any application verticals people should stay away from? I would say in general, we don't want you to get into trouble. You want to get us into trouble. So stay away from those type of applications. I think in general, this content is for you to help us and to help you to change the world in a positive way. So think about this kind of applications that can have a positive impact, like stay away from military type of applications, people detection in bathroom type of applications. I think that those will be rejected immediately. So just think about kind of good applications that have the potential to change the world.
Yeah, there's something called the Responsible AI License that we use at Edge Impulse, but it's a guideline of the types of applications that are responsible use of AI. So if you follow responsible AI guidelines, you're fine.
Then there's a question about office hours. We will probably be doing at least one, if not two more of these webinars to answer questions, and each of the sponsors will either provide a contact channel, or some of them will be posting office hours for questions related to using their technology to implementing a solution. So we'll post that on the Hackster page when we have a little more detail, but our intent is to make as much support available as possible.
Someone asked about Openmv sponsored hardware and made me realize something. So thanks to the chip shortage, lots of stuff is sold out. So, use whatever hardware platform you can get your hands on to do this application. Don't feel like if there's a particular platform you want to use and it's not available in stock, don't delay by waiting for that platform to come back in stock, because things are pretty terrible right now for trying to build products.
Yeah, and at least in Edge Impulse, you have a way to do virtual profiling on any hardware target. So even if you just have a Raspberry Pi, for example, you can bring your model in there and profile how it would run on an Openmv board, for example, or on a HiMax board. So you can also use that and show your results from a virtual performance point of view, and that would help with your entry. We understand if you can't physically get access to hardware. Don't stop that from being creative.
Yeah,
that might
be related to this and the question that was asked earlier. If you don't get the hardware, and if you want to start playing with pre-processed images and like desktop type of processor, that would be okay as long as there is evidence that you can run these algorithms on the real hardware and kind of in the tinyML fashion. But obviously, at the end of the day, we would like to have the thing. I mean, if you can put the thing together, that this is the best proof that this thing can work. But as the first step, we can start with images and computer, your laptop, basically.
I would say one thing about that. Just be careful on interestingly enough. From my days of demo coding, where you make an insane 3D application on the lowest end hardware, having constraints really kind of bring out creativity. So I recommend that you try to actually put those on yourself. If you don't put constraints on yourself, you're probably not going to get that creative on what you can do. So I recommend to try to actually, add some shackles and see how you can get out of them. Using your mind, so that these are helpful.
I'd like to add that of course the low power is a category in the rules, and what that really means is the more that you provide the documentation, the farther that you go down the power budget, the more points that you'll get. So of course, while you're able to participate with something that's at the higher end, you will of course receive more points by actually executing the project at the lowest power budget possible. And to that support, it's really important to make sure that you include part of your documentation some kind of analysis of that power budget. Best case scenario would actually be running it on against like a multimeter and documenting over time how it's going. But if all you're able to do is like a hypothetical power analysis, as long as it's documented, that's going to make the judge's job a lot easier to be able to figure it out. Because if you don't do that step, if you don't document yourself what the power budget is or the analysis that you've made, it's very ambiguous, and the judge will have to kind of guess what the power that you're consuming is. And so the more information that you can provide about how you're using your power within the document or within your project will help your chances.
And then if you want to pitch this idea further to investors, to VC, that point, that homework would be useful. That will give you some kind of validation that you can do this at that type of power. That's what VC people, investor people are going to like to.
Great. I think we've reached the top of the hour. Is there any closing remarks that we can do really quickly? Obviously, we'll follow up with the discussion at the contest page on Hackster. Is there anything any of the judges want to say before we close today's webinar?
Thank you for coming and being here for this hour. Thank you for being interested in the competition, and we're excited to see the kind of products and projects that you guys are going to come up with. I imagine there's going to be some really innovative things that people put together, and we're going to be blown away by the submissions.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining again, and we are super excited about this. And if you need any help from us, just let us know. I think we are here not just to judge, but also to help, and in many ways with the consultation, mentoring, but also in taking your idea to the next step. If you need our help with kind of scaling it up, that's our thinking here too.
Well, I'd like to very much thank the entire group of panelists, the judges, the sponsors, but most importantly, want to thank all of you for attending and for your participation in the tinyML Vision Challenge. So we will be posting this recording on tinyml.org/YouTube next week. We'll get the slides posted, and we'll post the questions, and keep watching the contest page on hackster.io for additional information. I want to thank everybody for joining us and wish you a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.